welcome back to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
We're back from a doozy of a weekend with a quick episode for you. We're going to go about 30 minutes today. We have some Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can, but we have some family stuff to get to. But first, the weekend was interesting. We had some family challenges because on Friday we had a big snowstorm in Colorado. Knocked the power out through the night, which Mel seemed excited about. Why are you excited for a good power outage?
Two reasons. One, I was prepared because I had recently bought 4 of these little lanterns.
I'm so excited to use those.
I know they were like still boxed up, and then I also had like extra food just in case of whatever. But more importantly, I was excited because I love when you're forced to not use any kind of tech. It's exciting because you suddenly get to hang out together without this pressure of having to put something else away to hang out. Like you have no other option than to be together and be creative. And I think as soon as the power goes back on, of course you can still be together and be creative, but it's harder because now you have these other competing interests.
It's a lot of distractions.
Exactly.
Everett wanted the power to go out again. He had such a good time.
He still sleeps with a lamp on. And he's I love that the power was out because it was a challenge for me. These are his words. I love that challenge because now that once the power turned back on, he was disappointed because now it's almost harder to do that challenge because he's got the lamp on. Granted, he did sleep. He could sleep with a flashlight or whatever, but I love that he immediately saw it as a challenge to grow and get better. That was very exciting.
And so we got the power outage, and the next day we wake up to 42, 44 inches of snow, 3 feet and some change, and we live on a mountain road that's unmaintained. So us to a main road is about half a mile, and Mel decided to make our life's challenging.
What?
By insisting on we shovel it all. So I give Mel a lot of credit. I had no interest in shoveling it. My game plan is up here, it'll drop that much, then it'll be 50 degrees for a few days, and it'll melt down. Let's just hunker down, sit tight. It's not shovel for 12 hours.
I felt otherwise.
Mel felt otherwise, and although I disagreed, I do want to honor Mel because she does such a fantastic job around the house. And if she's going with a shovel, I'm sure as heck going out with a shovel too, because I'm not going to let her go out there and shovel by herself.
Because I would have.
So over the course of 2 days and 12 hours of shoveling, we removed 44 inches of snow down a half-mile road wide enough for a car to drive. And Mel seems like she's enjoying herself. Like she's going out with a shovel for a little walk, touch up some edges here and there to shovel up a little bit, knock down like a couple more scoops. You know what? I saw this one thing. I'm going to go. She's manicuring the shovel job.
And I also have a spot picked out today because I yesterday got stuck 20 feet from my parking spot just because there was some extra slush there. And I guess somebody had come through and knocked some snow off. So I have a little more to do later.
So despite the challenge, there are some family lessons there. Number one, be prepared for some difficulty and don't just fold when things do get difficult. A lot of people had commented on our pictures that we had shared on Facebook, like, I could never shovel that much or things like that, which, yeah, I understand. It's not for everyone, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. There's no one coming to save you in all situations. And I did an episode on the community emergency response training that I did here in El Paso County. And that was one of the lessons. The more resources you need during an emergency, the less that are available for someone who might actually really need them in a life or death situation. So if you don't have food or if you don't have power and you don't have a couple of days worth of, let's say it's medicine that you need and you have to call to get it delivered, you need to take a plow truck off the main road to then go to the delivery service, the police, to then get it to your house. And that's a plow truck and an emergency responder and potentially a police officer that can't help someone that may be in a car accident down the road because you don't have a couple of days worth of prepared items that you would need. And so plan ahead, take a look at your stuff. I know most people aren't in the situation where they live on an unmaintained county road, but still, your power could go out for a while. It's probably not going to be a transportation issue. Most of the roads and most of the areas are going to get taken care of a lot quicker than ours. I get that, but still, I would be prepared for some power outage so that it's not so uncomfortable with your family. It happens. I'm not talking conspiracy power outage. I'm talking storms. I'm talking however it happens. To be able to go a couple of days without power. That includes, with no power in a lot of areas, no water, no heat, because you need the electricity to run it. If you have a well pump, or if you have even town heat, you need it pumped into your house. Like, how are you going to flush your toilet? Do you have drinkable water? Things like that were all considered. We knew a power outage may be coming because of all the heavy snow. So Mel had poured some pans of water, some big pots of water, and just put them by the stove. Fortunately, we have a gas stove, so we could use a stove, and we have a fireplace that we could make some heat that way. So we had chopped wood prepped, brought up to the deck to get it out of the water, or get it out of the snow. And we also have an ice tub out back, which we identified as water we could use to pour in the back of the toilet to be able to flush it throughout the day had we need it. Really well prepared. Give Mel a lot of credit. Don't want to talk too much about it, but just to give you the nudge to have some backup lights at a minimum, some backup food at a minimum. And what we do is not get like all the dried food and stuff like that. We just get food that has a long shelf life. Peanut butter is our go-to. We have a lot of jars
Peanut
of
butter, oats, and protein.
and as we eat it, we rotate it from the back of the stock because it has a long shelf life.
So I wanted to add to that. In the theme of raising confident, independent, resilient kids, there were plenty of lessons from this past weekend for our kids and us as a family. We have family that lives down the mountain that didn't have as much trouble, and they brought us some milk and bananas after 3 days. So we had to walk down like maybe a mile to go get it and carry it back up the mountain. So it's teaching them to think outside the box of how we can handle things like this. Or the kids had to come out and shovel and help us out with that. And they actually ended up having like snowball fights, and kids have a way of making things fun regardless. So we're trying to, with constant gentle pressure, show the kids like, what resources do we have? How can we manage this? They now understand that you have to pour water into the back of a toilet. They understand we can't open the refrigerator when the power's out. And I taped it all shut with like blue tape. So all these things that normally you wouldn't necessarily think about unless you're in the situation. So we've now given our kids some skills. And I told them if we ran out of water, our stove is warm because we always have pilot lights lit. Go outside, get some snow, boil the snow. There's things you could do that I think normally you wouldn't be thinking about. And even though we're referring specifically to a snowstorm, any opportunity there is to teach our kids some more resiliency, independent, and confidence skills, we certainly jump on that.
Yep. Avoid the woe is me attitude. And it's a great opportunity to role model for your family, which will end up being some of the themes and the questions and answers that we'll get to here shortly. I will give Mel props, and the one thing I'm most proud of her for, though, during it, other than we get it all shoveled, we go down, get the we happen on Friday. The kids still have school on Monday because the rest of the hill, once you get down the rest of the mountain, once you get down a mile, is pretty clear and gets significantly more sunshine because it's not in the shade. We could drive out on Monday morning, but the kids were they were whining about that a little bit. Oh, I don't want to walk to school. So Mel made them.
We're going to walk anyway because you complained.
Pretty much. We walked with them to school. We could have got a car out. We could have driven them, but they whined a little, so they didn't get that. They got to use their tooth.
And you know what? I think a lot of times, adults and kids both, they will look at something like that and say, that doesn't sound like fun. But I knew, what are the benefits of doing it? Now they recognize if something happens, you are capable of walking, because the older two actually went way ahead and were like playing in the puddles and like hanging out. So they could walk any day that they would want to. And I think now that they've experienced it, instead of just thinking of it as negative, they can look back and say, well, that's actually fun. Maybe I want to repeat that, even if there isn't a problem.
Yeah, I think they walked ahead because they didn't want you nagging on them, touching the
Oh.
puddles in their shoes,
Oh,
school
well.
shoes, getting their feet wet before
No wet
school.
feet. That is true.
It's a Mel thing.
I'm going to choose to see it in the more positive way.
Let's rock and roll with a couple questions and answers. We are way behind because we did receive a ton when we solicited them last year. And so I have a few that we're going to get to today, and by the time I mean over 1,000, but there are some themes. So Mel, the first question is, how do I get kids to do things that they don't want to do?
It's such a general question. There's always going to be things kids don't want to do. So if it's in the household, like household jobs, there's a reason why we call them contributions. So I think a big piece of it is how you present the thing that they don't want to do, by either helping them understand what it's going to be, how it's going to benefit them, or how it's going to benefit the family. So if in the morning, we've talked about this, I feel like ad nauseum before, but our kids get up in the morning, they have tasks in the kitchen to do, and we choose to call them contributions, not chores, because they're contributing to the family. And I think as soon as they see it as, I'm helping mom out, like if I didn't do this thing, then she has to do it. Or I'm helping my brother out because he can't reach over here, so I'm going to be able to put the dishes away for him. So I think a lot of it's mindset. And sometimes it has to be a bit selfish. Like the kid has to see how they can benefit from it, to see how they can learn, or what makes them want to do it a little bit more. So I'm also thinking of like schoolwork, for example, might be something they don't want to do. Like our oldest has struggled with just the desire to do unwanted tasks. So when it comes to school, he doesn't always see why it's beneficial. And I might say to him, this paragraph about irony might seem really irrelevant to you. Like, I don't think you're going to have to grow up and understand irony in a passage. However, learning how to write a solid paragraph, that will benefit you. So I tried to take it away from the subject matter and made it more about the skill he's learning. So that's my advice. I think it's mindset about what it is about and what they can get from it, or how it helps others. And also, what skill are you potentially gaining from doing that task that you don't want to do?
And I'll take a little bit different perspective to provide some more thoughts on it. I always like to think of things first in those concentric circles I've explained on a few different podcasts of responsibility, where you're most responsible for yourself. You're most responsible and accountable for what's happening in your life, and you need to influence that. Then your family, then the community, and then the nation, and then the world. It works itself out like circles nested inside of each other, starting with what you have the most power over. Too many people skip that first one. They don't want to address what they are accountable for. So the first thing you can do is making sure that you are doing things that you might not want to do without complaining on a regular basis. It's a piece of role modeling. Just like the shoveling we talked about earlier, didn't want to do it. Work from home most of the time, no need for me to do it, but it benefits the kids' lives and makes them easier so that we can drive them to school instead of having them walk all the time. They can make their practices because it would be a couple of days before thought out. But tackling those things like, hey, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this thing. You can vocalize it. There's a gray area between, look at me and I do all these things that I don't want to do and it all benefits you. You don't want to say that, but you do want to frame like, hey, this thing's going to be a challenge. I don't really want to do it, but it's going to benefit you guys, so I'm going to do it. So giving them some constant, gentle pressure with first starting with yourself. The next thing is to praise the effort when it's done well. So don't take things for granted. Even if they complain 90% of the time and they do something good, celebrate the something good. Don't say, oh, about time you helped me. That communication is so important. There's a good example that happened yesterday. Mel was bringing in groceries from the car with our older son after she picked him up from school, and he gets hangry after school. He gets real sensitive sometimes if he doesn't get something to eat, and he didn't go out and get a second trip of groceries. He should have. The middle one, instead of going out to help, complained that the older one didn't go to help. Like, why don't you go help out mom? And I complained to him. And then Mel came in and she got the groceries and there was a package still out there. She was telling me about it. And our 6-year-old overheard her saying that there's still a package in the car that wasn't brought down by the older two who are still debating on who should go get it. And so the 6-year-old went out and he comes back to our room with the package with almost like tears in his eyes. He said, I got the package. I couldn't close the back of the. He was so sad because he wanted to accomplish this mission to the highest degree, but he's just too short and small to reach the van to close it. But he went out bare feet up through the snow to where the van's parked, got the package, which was fairly heavy, maybe 10 pounds, carried it back down the hill in the snow with both his arms down the ice and brought it in, and still was disappointed that he didn't execute it. And like, we praised him a ton, had one of the other ones go out. And then we said, hey, Everett, thank you for role modeling for your older brothers. And it was a good example where I talked to them like, hey, you guys are the older boys. Role modeling is important. This would have been an opportunity for you to role model for him. But right now you have a 6-year-old that role model for you. So make sure you praise him and look up to him for what he's done. And He was certainly had some pride in. Mel said that he had carried down the heavy package. It's not heavy to me.
I just want to point out, I think sometimes when we're doing the podcast, it might seem like we have everything figured out and that our kids are always making great decisions. That's not true. This is why constant gentle pressure is so important. And like you said a minute ago, vocalizing these things, because I was disappointed that they didn't go up and just think on their own to help me. And we ended up having a discussion with each of them and to show them like what they did well and what they should have done better. Because if you just let those things go, and we did an episode about kids aren't just going to pick up on it. Sometimes they will, but sometimes you have to just take the moment and say, hey, this didn't go very well. What could you have done better? I want you to be more thoughtful next time and look at your little brother as a role model in this sense. But we had to have that conversation, even if it's difficult, and not just let it go, because I want them to learn for next time, not berate them, but just, hey, there's an opportunity. You guys dropped the ball. Next time, do better.
Yep. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. It's a lot of constant gentle pressure and correcting and getting it to where it needs to be in an unemotional way. A lot of family meetings, which are part of the Strong Family Path, which we give for free at strongfamilyproject.com, and see how we have our routines that set up guardrails around situations like this. So when things are going off track, we have an opportunity to correct it. That's part of our standards and system. And again, that's all for you at strongfamilyproject.com. Do want to take it a slightly different way. The other thing that I think you can do to help them to do the things you want is to practice gratitude on a regular basis. So this is going to be more of a high-level discussion. If you always give in and give and give, and they're not thankful for the things that they have in their lives, it makes it tough to get them to do something that they don't want to do because they are so dang comfortable all the time. If you give them treats all the time, I understand it's you trying to show affection. I know it's a love language with gifting, but I would encourage you to think of it a different way where you're not constantly giving them such comfortable things that it's ruining their ability to do uncomfortable things. So I'll tell you right now, we are all way too comfortable, myself included. People look at our lives and say, oh, you do so many hard things, like you do all this training, you have all these standards, you shovel the road, you do all this hard stuff. But listen, people that lived 100 years ago had it way harder on a daily basis than my life is. I'm sitting on a leather couch with all these cushions around me, speaking into a microphone. I get heat on, I have food in the fridge. These are things that people didn't have the luxury of having 125, 150 years ago. And somehow we have it as an expectation that we have all this comfort now. This is the way it should be. This isn't the way it should be. This isn't the way it has always been. So including some like maybe you get dessert once a week, not every day. Maybe you don't stop at the fast food place every time you drive by it. You don't give them constant comfort. My brother and I would always get in this debate. Would you rather have been John D. Rockefeller, the richest man ever to walk Earth, around the 1800s to I think he passed 1824-ish, or us today? You get to be him with all his money, all his luxury. But listen, you got to live, 1924. So he was end of 1800s, early 1900s. All the money in the world, what could you buy with it? Nice horse, a little bit of a Model T, a little bit of a Ford that you can bump down the roads that don't really exist that well in the country. In your uncomfortable wool suit and your little top hat, like it didn't. They had some refrigeration, but it wasn't going well, or some ways to keep food. But you always had to go out and wanting for the next, and you still had a lot of these rudimentary things that we take for granted today. And really, we've settled on, we'd pretty much rather be us today. John D. Rockefeller, with all his money, could not buy the life that most people live now. We have more luxuries than we ever have in the human history. And we start to expect these things and not show gratitude towards them. It is great we have them. If we can practice gratitude, I'm not saying give them up, but we just need to practice gratitude around them so that we're thankful for everything we get. We're thankful that there's food in the fridge, that water comes out of a faucet, your crap goes down a tube when you press a little lever. These are things that most humans never had, and we walk around with our nose up in the air like we expect more. And so that's the attitude that kind of perpetuates the situation of kids not wanting to do extra, you not wanting to do extra in your life because it's just so dang luxurious as it is.
That's why it was exciting when the power went out. Because not only do you have to sharpen your skills and look for your resources, but you also realize, man, I can't have a piece of toast. I can't heat this up in the microwave. How many things that we use during the day are attached to a power source? And you're challenged then to see if you're capable outside of that. But but I like what you said about gratitude. So suddenly it's, wow, I am thankful that we have all these appliances that help us out during the day, but I'm also thankful that I know I can survive without them, even if it's just 12 hours.
Just in our short lifetimes, when we were growing up, there was hunger epidemic around the world. And just 2 weeks ago, I read that now obesity epidemic in children is greater than the number of children that are hungry, that there are more kids that have too much food, that they become overweight. That now supersedes the number that we grew up with in middle school and elementary school, reading about all the starving kids and like, how do we help them? While that still does exist, there are a greater number that have too much luxury in their life. On the other side of the coin, this is just one lifespan of people.
That's wild.
And so I know it's high level stuff. We're not talking like, say this one thing and it'll fix it. But overall, you should be minimizing some of the luxuries in your life so you really appreciate it when you get them. Someone who has a chocolate bar every day isn't thankful for that chocolate bar. It's an expectation. If you have it once a month, or if you go back in my other example, I was doing some research as a former U.S. history teacher around the Civil War. They were likely to have cake once or twice in their lifetime.
Or the Little House on the Prairie books, when the kids for Christmas, they would get like some ribbon candy and an orange. That was their treat for the year.
So just trying to provide some perspective to it, not doing a disservice to your kids if you drive by the fast food place, if you don't treat them all the time. You're actually doing better for them if you do without, and so that those things that do happen are more special. That's all I got to say about that.
I'll just end with this. We share gratitude every day at dinner. The kids write gratitude every morning in their journal, and it's also a part of our family meeting. So there's easy ways to start to add gratitude. Like you could do gratitude on the way to school if you drive your kids to school. There's definitely a place in the day that you can share some gratitude. And even if everybody's not quite on board with it, you can be the role model. You can do it as well. You can share something about each person at the table or at bedtime, whatever the case may be. Find somewhere during the day that you can plug in some gratitude.
Along the same lines, let's get to our second question, and we'll take it more from a life planning angle. But how do I help my kid understand what they want to do in life? This person gave extra context. This person was an athlete, child into other things other than athletics. He's not quite sure as a father how to support him and still be there for him, but get him the attributes or characteristics that the father wants through a different process.
There you go first then.
A piece of it, I'll just share a little bit. A piece of it, you should work backwards. So he was talking about his son. You should do the same for daughter, father, son, mother, daughter, mother, son. I gotta make sure I get them. You should define what a good adult is very clearly for you. We have our 3 characteristics of what it takes to be a good man. Did we do an episode?
I don't think we did it
I don't know
completely.
if we shared it because we have sons. If you have a daughter, you should come up with what the definition of being a good woman is. And so you have these ideals and then you work backwards to help support them in their life. And you'll find quickly that it doesn't have to deal with doing one specific task or activity. It has more to do with developing character traits. You can develop character traits with playing soccer, football. You can do it with playing an instrument. You can do it with robotics. You can do it with the regular schoolwork. You want to instill work ethic and things like that. But let me back up just one step. The reason why you want to define it is because you need to know where you're going. If you started a journey and you went on vacation and you didn't have a destination, you would get lost very quickly. Even if you had a vague definition, oh, we want to go west. Like, all right, that's a pretty big place out there. You want to narrow that down. And I hear that mistake more often. Like, I want someone who has good work ethic and is respectful and shows out. They say these important words, but they're just vague, and those words change, and they're like, oh, kind or nice, or which we did an episode on recently too, or whatever it is. Narrow it down and get clear on what you want. And then you work backwards and understand that what activities they're doing now, the activity is less important than the character traits that leads them to that definition of being a good adult.
So, for example, one of our traits of being a good man would be leading courageously. So whenever and we went through with the kids, once we thought of our 3 characteristics, we had them written down. We sat down with the kids and thought of examples of what each of those would be. So they see the character trait, leads courageously.
Right.
Then
We have the definitions up on the wall, are 3. This is a sheet of paper. You can imagine leads courageously and a bubble in the middle. And all the things the kids added of what are the examples of leading courageously around it. It sits behind me on the table, but that's where the family looks so they can see him at the wall at the dinner table each night.
So whenever one of them does one of those things that contributes to that character trait, we point it out. And that's how they make those connections. So I completely agree with helping them from that backwards perspective of what kind of character traits to develop. I also read into that question as you have your ideals and skill set over here, and your kid might show a different interest, so you don't really know what to do with that. And we have had that to a degree with our oldest. And my piece of advice with that would be to find people in the community to connect that kid to that can help them develop those interests. So we're talking character traits on one side, but also if it's a specific interest, I think it's important if you don't have that skill set, then you need to connect them with someone in the community or someone in your church family or someone that you can trust that can help guide that kid with their interests. Because I think that if you just say, I don't know what to do with this, we want to make sure that we recognize what their passions are and then do everything we can to connect them to things that will help them develop the passion, even if we ourselves don't know how to do that.
Back in season 1, we did a block of interviewing other experts in the field or other parents that want to contribute. And I wish I remembered which one said this so I could give her credit, but she said she's a great helper. That's how she defined herself. My kids want to do a lot of things. I don't know how to do them all, but I'm a great helper. I can find the resources. So for us, it's finding Logan wants to do some blacksmithing. We found that they had a program at the library, so we took them, and Mel did the class with them, and they made these little metal hooks. It was cool. They have this concrete couch program where they do some construction stuff after school, building boxes and stuff. And we found that program and got him in it. So we were able to find different programs to support the attributes. Were you saying something?
I think it was Amy from Planning Playtime.
Okay, good. I want to give people credit for people that contribute to everyone's lives. With that being said, I want to go again, just more higher level strategy is set a standard and then hold the standard. So the standard are the characteristics. So if let's say they went to a football practice and they slacked off in the back and they didn't do much and they went to the bare minimum. Or if they went to a classroom and they slacked off in the back and they did the bare minimum and they sat in the back. Or they went to band practice and slacked off and didn't use their instrument at all and hung out in the back. It doesn't matter which one of those activities they're doing. It's that they weren't meeting the standard, which is you should be engaged and participate and get the most out of this. If this is something you want to do, we're going to help support you through it. Now it's up to you to be accountable to be able to get the most out of this, and being respectful and thankful, again, back to gratitude for the opportunity to do this thing versus just, oh, my parents give me everything, so I'm just going to sit in the back. It doesn't matter.
When Logan goes up to that office that we've mentioned before and he works on 3D printers, we always tell him, leave the place better than you found it. And if the owner is there, make sure you show gratitude to him for the opportunity he's giving you. And it never gets old. You could show it in different ways. But I always want him to see this opportunity as something he needs to be thankful for and not take it for granted.
All right, we got about land this airplane. I'm going to throw out one more because I think it'll be quick. Why are kids so disrespectful these days? Direct question.
As you said a second ago, I don't think a high standard is being set and held. They can just get away with stuff.
Yeah, low standards, low gratitude, and then low self-reflection from the people who are saying these types of things, that perhaps they need to work on higher standards and higher gratitude themselves as well, so that that it's an opportunity to role model that for the kid.
I think to bring it back to the strong family path, if you set a standard in your home, which you can do by following the strong family path, if you do any of those 7 pieces of the path, 1 through 7 of them, that already sets a standard in your home. And if you are living a high standard in your home, when your kids go out into the world, they have a higher chance of being the ones that are respectful. But if that standard isn't being set at home, what do you expect kids to do when they go out into the world? Like, where are they going to get that proper role modeling? Maybe they'll have a great teacher or a great coach, but why would you leave that to chance? Set the standard in your home. And we talked earlier, like our kids, we were disappointed this weekend that they didn't step up a little bit more with the snowstorm. But again, it was another opportunity. Going back to the strong family path of reminding them what our values are, remembering that we need to constantly show them that gentle pressure because they're not just going to learn it overnight. And we just refer back to all those standards that we've set.
Excellent job. We got to land this airplane and get back to some family stuff and our own obligations, but we love sitting down and having these conversations with you. You've seen a change of tune in season 2, which is we're doing this just so we can connect and have fun and share and answer questions. The Instagram's been a little slower. The emails have been a little slower, but if you're following us on your favorite podcast platform, you'll always get the episode. They always go up on YouTube. And you can visit strongfamilyproject.com, download the free steps of the Strong Family Path so you have an additional resource. And we also have the Strong Family Guidebook on Amazon, which should crack into, I think it was number 7 in one of the parenting categories as the book gains more steam and gets more popular and helps more families. And we'll talk to you next Thursday on the next episode. Thanks for listening.